we interrupt this awesome podcast with a word from our sponsor. This podcast episode is brought to you by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor before, I'm here to fill you in on the secret. Anchor is the easiest, most efficient, and most stress-free way to make a podcast. They provide you with the tools to record, produce, and even edit your podcast right at the edge of your fingertips or from your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast to the major podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Anchor has everything you need to help make your voice heard. And best of all, Anchor is free. That's right, it's free. Everyone should have a podcast with Anchor. And if you don't believe me, you're listening to a podcast that was made with Anchor right now. I use Anchor every single time I make a podcast because they're the best podcast platform out there. It's super easy and it's free. So go ahead and download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm. Now, let's get back to the episode. Good morning, world. Welcome to another episode of Zendependently Minded. If you are a new or returning listener, I hope you enjoy this episode. If you're interested in more awesome combat sports podcasts, stay tuned because it's only going to get bigger and better from here. And share Zendependently Minded with everyone you know, even if they're not really into combat sports, because this podcast eventually might evolve into something bigger and better than combat sports. It'll always have a little bit of MMA and boxing in it, but it could get bigger and just put people on the amazing sport that is boxing and MMA. Put them on it and do them a favor, and they'll thank you later. And yeah, share the podcast with them. So, welcome back to another episode. Obviously, this podcast episode is going to be on UFC 257, but this is the first episode of the year of 2021. I was going to do an episode last week, of course, on the fight night that had Max Holloway and Calvin Kattar fighting in the main event, but I lost my voice because of a couple other projects I was doing some audiobook things, so my voice was gone and it sounded horrible, and I didn't want to do an episode with that, but I wish I was able to somehow. If you follow me on Twitter, you see that I predicted a 4th round stoppage TKO for Max Holloway, which technically I wasn't correct. Fight should have been stopped. It should have been stopped in the 4th round. The ref should have stopped. I think it was Herb Dean who was refereeing that fight. Doctor could have stopped it at the end of the 4th round. But I was pretty accurate as far as the beatdown went. I was a little concerned going in, but I knew that Max had it in the bag, and I think one of the biggest reasons why Max has looked so fresh is probably because he hasn't been sparring for the past two fight camps. I think he said the last time he sparred was for the first Volkanovski fight, so it's probably why he's looked so fresh and looked so good, and I'm hoping to see him maybe get the next title shot after Volkanovski and Ortega fight, whoever wins at that one. Because Max is probably still getting into his prime. He's done so many amazing things, only being 29 years old, and it's really impressive, and I'm really excited to see what the future has in store for him. Moving on to this card, though, super excited, obviously. It goes without saying, you guys know me, biggest Conor McGregor fan out there. Got 2 bottles of Proper 12 whiskey in my house. I got an August McGregor shirt that cost way too much because shipping it to where I'm living from where they come out of is, costs a lot. And I've seen every single one of his fights. I've watched almost all of his UFC fights recently live because I only got into the sport recently. But, I've seen all of his professional fights, every professional fight of his that you can find on the internet, whether it's on YouTube or some shady site or Fight Pass, I've seen it. I'm his biggest fan, so definitely I'm going to be as unbiased as possible when I go into my analysis and prediction for that main event bout between him and Dustin Poirier. But starting off the beginning of the card, so there's been a few fights that have been dropped, I believe, throughout this entire event. I believe 3 fighters have missed weight. I don't know if all 3 fights have been dropped or what, but I do know there was a prelim fight between a couple guys. I think that was moved up to the main card because Ottoman Azatar, I guess he broke safety protocol, security protocol. He brought in, he had someone from outside of the bubble bring some duffel bag. He cut off his wristband, gave it to the guy. Dana White's been over it. I'm sure you guys who are listening have heard and know all the details. But I mean, it was dangerous. Could have put a lot of fighters, a lot of employees' health at jeopardy. Could have put the event at jeopardy. So, the UFC cut that guy. So he's moved out, and the fights have been shifted. But my predictions for the 5-fight main card, pretty sure is accurate. So correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll do corrections. Put it on my Twitter and my all the pages I have the podcast on. But starting off with the first fight of the main card, it's a women's strawweight bout between Marina Rodriguez and Amanda Ribas. This is gonna be a really fun fight because it's between 2 real tough female fighters. Marina's coming off of a loss against Carla Esparza, and Amanda is coming off of a submission win in the first round against Paige VanZant. Paige VanZant she's really been on the upward trend of popularity recently, just because, how sweet she seems, how friendly she seems, but also at the same time how good her jiu-jitsu is. Because she's only 27 years old, but she submitted Paige VanZant. I know I think she has a few submissions in her MMA career. Like I said, she's a black belt. She's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu, black belt in judo, and she only has 1 loss in her entire mixed martial arts pro career. That was by knockout, so gotta watch out for that. But as far as her ability to take the fight to the ground, we saw that really quickly. She did it really quickly against Paige VanZant. And she's shown in the past in other promotions the ability to knock people out as well. But she's mostly known for her submissions. She has knee bar submissions, rear naked choke submissions. She had that arm bar against Paige VanZant. So I am going to favor Amanda in this fight, but anything could happen. We'll see how fresh Marina Rodriguez is. Her last fight was back in July of last year, so maybe she's had some time to heal. Maybe we'll see some rust from her. It's not that. I mean, it's been about 6 months since she last fought. So we'll see how that goes. But I am going to favor Amanda, and I do think that she's going to submit Marina in the second round. Moving on to this middleweight bout, I'm going to be honest. I don't know much about Andrew Sanchez. Looking through his UFC career, he looks like he started off his career with a couple decision wins, got knocked out a couple times. So he's a win some and lose some guy, but he is coming off of a knockout of Wellington Turman. Man, try to say that 5 times really fast. And that knockout was just back in August, so it wasn't that long ago. So it's an impressive feat there. He's fighting a guy that's a couple years younger than him, Makhmud Muradov. Makhmud Muradov, I was doing a little bit of research on him, doing a little film study on him. He actually just fought last month. He knocked out Trevor Smith. He's on a small win streak, I believe. And he's got power in his hands. We saw that in his knockout in December. So definitely we might see some fireworks in this fight coming up. And Makhmud he's a kickboxer. I believe he's from the Czech Republic. Trains out of Las Vegas, something like that. He's also part of the money team, Floyd Mayweather's team. So it's pretty impressive. But looking at his career, the guy's on a serious win streak. Last time he lost was in 2016. It was by doctor stoppage, and it was against a dude that probably no one has heard of. But before the knockout of Trevor Smith, he also beat Alicio De Chirico, who we saw recently fight. He beat him by decision. So he's coming in riding an impressive win streak, and I do think he's going to continue that win streak, and I do think he's going to knock out Andrew Sanchez. What round do I think that's going to be? I think that's going to be in the first round. I think it's going to be quick. And he's just going to add more heat to his stock that's growing right now. Moving on to the third bout on this main card, we have a women's flyweight fight between Joanne Calderwood and the girl that nobody likes, Jessica Eye. So, I don't really have to say anything. I'm not a big fan of Jessica Eye either. She just rubs me the wrong way. I wish nothing bad against her, but I just not a big fan. Joanne Calderwood is coming off of a submission loss against Jennifer Maia, and I believe Jessica Eye. So in the fight that she missed weight, her most recent fight was in 2020, of course. She lost the decision against Cynthia Calvillo. She actually got completely dominated in that fight. She was basically taken down, held, and just completely outstruck. Cynthia landed more than double the amount of strikes that she did, and it was pathetic. And then also the fact that she missed weight and then was so she was just so arrogant about it and kind of begging, just asking to be criticized. I don't know. It was annoying, but so these are two flyweights that, they win some and they lose some, and they're not really at the top of the heap as far as their division goes. And I also don't know why they're this high up on the main card. There are better fights in the prelims. Like I said, that Matt Frivola fight should have been higher up. Armin Sarukian's fight should have been higher up too. Brad Tavares. I don't know. I'm not gonna say Brad Tavares and his fight with Antonio Carlos Jr. was better. Both guys I think are coming off knockout losses, but Jessica Eye on the main card, come on, man. So I think that this fight is going to go to decision. Both girls haven't gotten a finish in a while. They're not the biggest finishers, so I think this could go to decision, and I think we could see a fight that stays on the feet. With Joanne losing by submission recently and Jessica getting dominated on the ground recently, we could see them stand up, and hopefully we see a good stand-up fight, and hopefully neither person gets injured and they come out, but I would like to see an entertaining fight. I do ultimately think that Jessica's going to come out on top if the fight does stay up on the feet. She probably has a little chip on her shoulder just because of the amount of hate she's gotten recently and from her last loss. So I do think Jessica Eye will win by decision. So moving on to the spicy stuff, the real exciting stuff. The co-main event fight between UFC newcomer Michael Chandler and Dan Hooker. So this is going to be a tough one for me to decide because I've been following Dan Hooker for a very long time. In the past, I've stated I wasn't the biggest fan of him. He didn't look too impressive against Dustin Poirier. He looked really impressive against Al Iaquinta, though. And then, he was able to squeak by with that decision win over Paul Felder. A lot of people felt that Paul Felder won that fight. I do agree with the decision, though, with Dan Hooker, but that's all in the past. That doesn't matter. It's a new day. It's a new fight. Could be a totally new fighter as far as Dan Hooker is concerned and as far as the fans are concerned. Dan Hooker has strength. He's got length. What I meant to say is he has reach. He's got power. We've seen him knock out a lot of impressive people over the years. He knocked out Gilbert Burns back when Gilbert Burns was back down at lightweight. So he has that power, and he's totally able and willing to knock someone out. On the other hand, Michael Chandler, he's getting up there in age. I believe he's 34 years old, so he might be coming out of his prime. He was there was big talk of him coming to the UFC for many years, and he finally came. He did a lot of he had a lot of accomplishments. He has a lot of accomplishments from Bellator. I know he was the lightweight champion for a while over there. He did beat Eddie Alvarez. He beat Benson Henderson. I do also believe back when Eddie was in Bellator before he came to the UFC, I think Eddie beat him also. So they have one apiece, I believe. And when this fight was first made, I thought completely probably 85-90% chance Dan Hooker wins. I still do think Dan Hooker's going to win, but the strength for Michael Chandler is going to come in his wrestling, because he's a solid wrestler. He's got a lot of finishes. He's got 9 knockouts, 7 submissions, I think. So the submission game is dangerous. But on the other hand, Dan Hooker does have submission wins also, and it's hard to take Dan Hooker down because he's such a long guy, and it's hard to get in range without getting clipped. And he doesn't get taken down often. So in order to, beat Dan Hooker on the ground, obviously you got to be on top. You don't want to be on bottom. It's a dangerous place to be. We saw what it was like when Dan Hooker was on top of Al Iaquinta. Al Iaquinta couldn't do anything. So as far as this fight goes, I think the keys to the game, the keys to this bout for Michael Chandler, he needs to play towards his strength. If he doesn't knock out Dan on the feet, he's going to have to rely on his wrestling, and I just think it's going to be hard to knock out Dan because we've seen how durable he is. I think the last time he got finished or knocked out was the brutal body shots that he took against Edson Barbosa, which was years ago. So, and like I said, Dan Hooker has serious reach advantage. It looks like he has, it's not as big as I thought. He's got a 9 centimeter reach advantage over Chandler. So, and then, on the other hand, Michael Chandler is a really good athlete. We've seen how shredded he is over the years. So Michael Chandler will probably earn my respect. Well, he'll earn more respect because I already respect him. Like I've said in the past, I respect all fighters, no matter what their record is, no matter what promotion they're in. None of that matters. If you step in the octagon, if you step in the ring, if you fight in the grass, whatever, fight in the streets, which are crazy, super dangerous. If you fight at all, in any kind of competition, I got respect for you because it takes a different breed of human to do that. But I do think Dan Hooker is going to win. I think his length and his reach and his striking ability is going to be too good for Michael Chandler, and I do think Dan Hooker is going to win by decision. But there's going to be some ups and down moments in this fight, and it's going to be exciting. Both guys are going to, they're going to hug it out, shake hands, and I don't think it will be the last fight for either guys, of course. Moving on to the main event. I'm super excited. I'm near speechless just because of how excited I am for this fight. I'm the biggest Conor McGregor fan on earth. I actually came to grip reality last year when Conor retired. I accepted it. I thought Conor was probably too frustrated. He might move on to boxing, focus on his business, focus on his family. I really thought he was retired, and I was happy for him because at the end of the day, I'm a huge Conor McGregor fan, but I am also a huge fan of the sport, period. So I'm going to continue watching the sport with or without Conor. And I'm a big fan of a lot of guys, so it's not the end of the world, and it was a little sad because Conor looked good in the Cowboy fight, but I did want to see more from him, and I know he wanted to fight 3 times that year and all. I'm sure you guys, once you've listened to this probably isn't the first little bit of media and coverage of the fight card coming up that you listen to. It's probably the end of your list. If you're already a subscriber or listener, I appreciate you for listening, and if you're a newcomer, I hope you like and enjoy this podcast. But as far as Conor goes, of course, he's coming off of a knockout win of Cowboy. It's a little over a year ago. So it's been a year. Apparently, Conor, he said he's been fighting in he's been training a lot. He's been super focused, and he's had some small fights on the side. He said so, but he said he wants to get some time in the octagon. And then, of course, Dustin is coming off of that fight of the night. People consider fight of the year contender bout between him and Dan Hooker, which was, I don't remember when that was. I think it was October, November last year, maybe. I'm not sure. During the coronavirus, time's kind of melded into one, and it's been flowing by, and January's already almost over, so pretty crazy. But getting back to the topic, both guys are coming off of wins in different fashions, but we saw just also how durable Dustin Poirier was in that fight with Dan Hooker, because there were times when they were just throwing their entire bodies and then some into shots. And for the most part, neither guy really got wobbled. I know Dan's knees kind of buckled on one of the shots that Dustin threw at him, and that's just because Dustin's hooks are powerful. I remember when I was doing my own kind of training last year, just hitting the bag, staying in shape, didn't plan on fighting or anything. I emulated and copied a lot of stuff that Dustin does when he trains, like with his medicine balls, because he's one of the most explosive and exciting strikers and boxers in the game. So I know his kick game has kind of dwindled a lot recently, because I believe he's had a hip surgery, so he's not going to be as flexible. He's never going to be the same as he was when he was younger. So his kick game is it's not what he used to be. He never was a huge kicker to begin with, but so his kicks are not going to really be a factor for Conor, I don't think. Of course, I'm not one of Conor's trainers. I'm not one of his coaches, so thankfully they're not listening to me, because Dustin could come out and head kick Conor and knock him out. You never know. Anything could happen. These two guys have a lot of respect for each other, as we've seen in there's not really been any trash talk. There was a little bit of an intense moment when they were making eye contact and when they met up in that face-off after the ceremonial weigh-in, but there's respect, and it's exciting to see. One of the things, it's great to see, because that's what martial arts is about at the end of the day. Respect, and putting your all into your craft, and then respecting the other person for getting the best of you, if that does happen. And one of the things that I was thinking about, because though everyone knows how the first fight went, Conor predicted a knockout inside 90 seconds. He did so, knocked out Dustin, and then Mystic Mac, the nickname came to fruition. And then, leading up to that fight, there's a lot of trash talk. Dustin really he rushed at Conor at the weigh-ins the first time they fought. Slapped his hand when he put his hand up at him, taunting him, and when the rules were being gone over in the middle of the octagon before the fight. So, everybody knows the history. So I do think Conor being respectful is possibly throwing off Dustin. I know Dustin did look a little uncomfortable to me at the press conference. Take it with a grain of salt, though. Body language, some people just look into body language way too much, and then they give it too much power, and then they're completely wrong when the fight comes. So, but Dustin did look a little uncomfortable, and he's probably has been thrown off a little bit leading up to this fight, just not having any trash talk, because everyone knows Conor as this big, brash trash talker, and then he usually can back it up, with the exception of Nate Diaz 1 and Khabib, of course. So I think that might throw Dustin off a little bit, but at the end of the day, Dustin has fought under some big lights. He's been the underdog before, and he's come through. I don't think he's going to come through on this, though. I really don't. Just looking at how reckless Dustin was in his last fight with Dan Hooker. Maybe he came out like trying too hard to get a finish because he wanted to get recognized again because he just got dominated by Khabib. I'm not sure, but just looking at how reckless he was, granted he looked durable as heck and he ate all those shots. Every kind of shot, no matter who it's from, could be completely different. Like I said earlier, Dan Hooker has a lot of power, but precision beats power, as anybody who knows anything about striking in combat sports knows. Precision beats power. And then I think the quote goes, timing beats speed. So as far as this, the striking like styles and stats for Conor and Dustin, I just don't see Dustin being able to take a precise, perfectly timed, perfectly placed left counterpunch from Conor the way that he was taking those shots from Dan. I could be completely wrong, I don't think the first shot's going to put Dustin out. And I'm not saying that Conor's going to knock Dustin out at all, but I don't think that recklessness, and then basically trying to go toe-to-toe with Conor, it hasn't worked for anybody. It worked for Nate Diaz in the first fight when he wobbled Conor, but Conor was really low on energy in that fight because he completely blew his load and he had staph infection. So that's a lesser known fact, but do the research. You can see that I'm not pulling it out of my butt. Going toe to toe with Conor is not recommended. It's never gone well for anybody, especially in the UFC. I believe Luke Thomas put this out on his Twitter recently. The only two people that have ever beat Conor in the first round were Chad Mendes, when Chad Mendes took him to the ground and landed some ground and pound and I think he cut open Conor's eyebrow with an elbow. And then also, of course, Khabib beat Conor in the first round because he took him down, completely controlled the fight there. But every other fight that Conor's ever been in the UFC, he's won because, he outstrikes you, he's got pace, he's got precision, and he's got power. And I only think that his power has gotten better. He's looked bigger, and he looked drained. He looked a little bit drained at the weigh-ins. So did Dustin, because we know Conor fought at 170 last January against Cowboy, and he's just looked bigger and bulkier and stronger, and he's worked with his McGregor Fast people and worked on his conditioning. That's what I believe. That's what I've been led to believe, and that's really truly what I think has been going on. So, earlier on, I predicted that Conor was going to knock out Dustin, maybe in the third or fourth round. But now I'm kind of leaning towards a decision win. But I think Conor is going to look great. I think he's going to 50-45 or maybe even 50-44 Dustin. And I'm confident in making that prediction because while Dustin at the end of the day is a great fighter and a great striker, like Conor said, great is still levels below what he is. And I think we're going to see that this weekend. I'm super excited for it. Here in Germany, the main card starts at 4, so yeah, it's gonna be a tough one, staying up for the prelims, the early prelims, and then making it. But I've done it before. I've done it for fights that I was less interested in. Done it for fight nights, so it's gonna be awesome. I'm super excited, and after that, we got some football games. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you for listening. And make sure you tune in to the next episode for next week. I hope you're having a better 2021 and stay safe. Stay away from all the crazy people. Thank you.